Hello there, Linda Ronstadt there in San Francisco. It's lovely to talk to you this evening.
Nice to be with you.
Thanks for taking time to talk with us.
My pleasure.
Linda, my first question is, when did you last visit Australia? I think I was at the show, but was it a long time ago? Can you remember?
It was in the 80s sometime. I think the last time I was there was with the Nelson Riddle Orchestra.
Ah, you did come down with Nelson Riddle Orchestra. Okay, well then I wasn't there. I was at a pop show that you did, which was at an outdoor venue, one of those huge, big cavernous venues, which I note from your book.
In Melbourne?
Really in Melbourne, yeah.
That would have been that would have been the MCG.
Probably the MCG.
So funny. I remember that show really well. I remember that show. Because it was just huge. It was huge, and it was impossible to find the audience. I didn't know where they were in the world.
Your book is incredible. I really connected with it. I'm not an avid reader, but when, I knew you were doing the book, I just couldn't wait to read it. And there are people in your life that we kind of share, that are sort of some of the cast members that are in mine. So I never thought in a million years that I would get to speak with you. It's amazing because, we have met because we did some shows opening for you, 4 or 5 shows with you consecutively. Just like you say in your book, you said how you were very intimidated, I think, if I'm correct. I'm not going to use the exact phrasing, but you said that you were a big fan of the Neville brothers. Was it a real thrill for you to finally meet Aaron Neville and, of course, then to go on and sing such great songs with him? But you were a little bit nervous about doing that, and I remember that when we worked with you, I was just so nervous because, you were such a...
You guys were working with John Boylan then, right?
That's right, yeah. I mean, so, we share that relationship with John, and John has been an incredible figure in my life because when I was first in, and this is not going to be all about me, it's all about you, of course, but I just wanted to say that connection is that when we worked with John, I mean, he was just such an important part of our career. First couple of albums we did...
He was a big booster of Australian pop music to the world, right?
Exactly. I mean, it was terrific. And when they said, hey, John Boylan has offered to produce you guys and he's just come off a massive hit with Boston, and I said, forget that. I mean, he produced Linda Ronstadt. That's what's important to me. And so...
Oh, how sweet.
We became really, really good friends. And the thing was that in the first era of Little River Band, I wasn't a songwriter. And then when I left the band for a couple of years and I came back and we reformed, I insisted, I said, well, John's got to be at the helm because... We'd gone on and we did an album with George Martin, the Beatles producer, but when we broke up and we came back together, I said, let's put the old team back together because that was really successful. And so John was back on board, and it was my first album as a songwriter, and I was very flattered to get 3 songs on the album, but one song I was having particular difficulty with, and John just kept sending me back and saying, you can write a better lyric than this, you can improve the lyric. And I kept going back because I was the new kid on the block and rewriting the lyric, and finally I got a little bit cocky and I got a little bit upset, and I said to John, you don't do this to the other guys in the band, the proven songwriters. And he said, little buddy, I do it because I know you'll rise to the challenge. And
he's such a good guy.
That is so John Boylan, and I just knew that you would relate to that because you know John so well.
Well, the other thing is that John is a guy, I've known him all my life, and he lives in the solution, not the problem.
Exactly.
He will move right into the solution, not spin in the problem, and get stuff done. He's one of those proactive guys, and he's so smart. He knows. He knows. Lovely compliment.
And Linda, if you want to hear his life story, we've got him up on one of our shows as well on podcast.
Oh, terrific.
Linda summed him up perfectly. That's a great description of John. And I haven't seen him for a long time, so,
You haven't missed a lot.
Linda, is your brother still involved in the police force in Arizona?
No, he was chief of police there for years, and he was revered. He's a very, very fine lawman, I have to say. I'm very proud of my brother. He's a very, very good man. Peter,
yeah.
Michael's a musician also. Michael's in a group called Ronstadt Generations with his 2 sons, and they travel all over the country in Mexico and Europe. They do traditional Southwest American stuff.
Congratulations on your National Medal of the Arts. That must have been a tremendous...
Thank you.
Was that a real thrill for you? Is that something like, do you cherish more than a Grammy?
I was certain they had made a mistake. I was sure they would call me up any minute and say, we made a mistake with some other girl. It was Bonnie. We meant Bonnie Raitt,
Yeah.
But, I'm a great fan of President Obama, and I never was in the music business for prizes. It's always nice to have people acknowledge your work because it's hard to work in a vacuum, but, prizes have never meant a lot to me, and my health isn't very good, so traveling is not something I want to do, but I wouldn't have turned that down because I have so much respect for President Obama, and I love getting a chance to meet him. He's an incredibly gracious, kind person. He's the 4th president I've met, and by far he's the most aware, the most present, and the most completely sympathetic in a very genuine way of any of the presidents I've met. Wonderful man. It's one of the great American tragedies that the Republicans, it gets down to racism again, have not given him a chance to do it. He's so talented. He's such a brilliant communicator. And they just cut him off at the knees. It doesn't matter what he suggests. It doesn't matter if it's completely in line with everything they've been hollering about that they want for the last 15 years. As soon as he wants it, they don't want it, and they have to criticize it.
It's a shame that he didn't successfully overhaul the medical system, because it has been so unfair, your medical system.
Oh, it's terrible. We should have single payer. We should have Medicare for all, which is socialized medicine. It's a single payer plan. You get to choose your own doctor. It's one of the more successful and better quality medical plans in the world. A lot of other medical care systems have patterned themselves on Medicare, but we only allow it for people over 65. But everyone should have Medicare, everyone. The insurance companies are making such a huge profit on it. Nobody should make a profit on someone's illness.
Anyway, look, let's talk yourself, Linda. So you come from a very, very prominent Arizona family that came to Arizona many, many years ago. So can you tell us, who haven't read your book, a little bit about the Ronstatts and the Coatmans?
Well, the Coatmans were living in Michigan. That's where my mom's family's from. But my grandfather's family, I consider myself as a person from the Sonoran Desert. The Sonoran Desert goes down south of the border. It's in Mexico as well. So I've always felt that was my little region that I come from. And regardless of the fact that the Americans have erected a fence along the border, which serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever except for to enrich the people that have gotten paid to put up the fence, but because it doesn't keep people from crossing, and it shouldn't anyway. But anyway, my family were Mexican, and they were in that area for hundreds of years, but the border moved from time to time. I always say we didn't migrate, the border migrated. So one day the border parked itself about 60 miles south of where we were, and then we became Americans. I mean, culturally, I've always identified as Mexican. Mexican-German, Mexican-Dutch.
That means you're a real American.
Well, Mexico is a melting pot, just like I'm part indigenous Mexican, part German, part Dutch on my father's side, and English. On my mother's side, German, Dutch, and English, too. I actually have a lot of Dutch. I'm a Dutch Mexican. It's a hefty combination. But culturally, I identify as a Mexican.
Your singing of your Spanish records is just astonishing. And I think you say in your book that looking back on your career, singing that music was the music that you enjoyed the most or gave you the greatest satisfaction?
The Mexican records I like the most. I mean, that's where I felt the most myself. The Mexican records and the records that I did with Nelson Riddle were the ones that I felt the most who I was, who I am. The Mexican stuff is just so, musically, it's so thrilling. The Mexicans have a very high tradition for poetry, so the lyrics are incredible, traditional Mexican songs, and the rhythms are amazing. Lucky for me, I grew up hearing them. I never would have been able to figure out how to decode them. Really hard to sing. I had to learn the dance steps to a lot of those songs in order to figure out the phrasing, because they're based on indigenous Mexican rhythms. They're not European, they're not West African, they're completely pure Mexican.
Did your parents give you money? I mean, how did you survive there when you first got there, Linda? Did you have a bit of savings? Or...
My dad gave me $30, and I made it last for 3 months.
Yeah, well done.
And he gave you his 1898 Martin guitar.
Yeah, 1896, yeah.
1896. Do you still have that guitar?
I still have it, yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
The Martin 121. It's a really small-waisted guitar with a rosewood back and a spruce front. It's a beautiful little guitar. I still play it.
When I read that, I thought, well, that's wonderful. I hope you still have it. And I knew that you probably would because of the attachment to it, of course.
Yeah, pretty soon it's going to come time to pass it down. I'll probably give it to one of my nephews who plays with my brother in the band. They're really musical, my brother's kids. So I'll probably take a name out of a hat and give it to one of them.
One thing that in your book you say, and it isn't really clear, is that you mention the Stones a lot, or you mention Mick, and I know there's that wonderful story where you were sort of up all night.
I never mentioned him once.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, somebody else's book. He's not in the book in any way.
I know there's a passage there with Keith.
Oh, yes, you're right. I completely forgot. I must have been reading somebody else's book myself. You're right, I didn't mention them. I forgot.
No, I thought terrible then. I thought, I haven't done my research. I'm a naughty boy. Because I'm getting
my memory is slipping.
Oh, mine is too, and so it was like I read your book twice this week because I thought my memory is slipping, so I read it and made some notes as well. But I wondered when you said that not a lot of music was saying getting through into Arizona. Were you aware of the British invasion that happened around 63, 64?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so the Beatles obviously had an impact on you as well, because you don't mention the Beatles much in your book, and I was also going to ask you, have you ever recorded a Beatles song? And I thought, well, I'll do some research first. And of course, you recorded Good Night for your Dedicated to the One I Love, which is beautiful, by the way.
It's a beautiful song. It's really a beautiful song. I listened to the Beatles. I heard them on the radio, and I think they're a wonderful band, but I was much more influenced by traditional music, and so were they. The thing about pop musicians is that they usually are influenced by some kind of root thing more than other pop music. We absorbed the influences of other pop music. Everybody absorbed the influences of the Beatles. Nobody could escape it, and it was wonderful stuff. But I was listening to Mexican music and American folk music, bluegrass. I loved Bulgarian folk music. I loved all kinds of different stuff, like Edith Piaf. I've always had really eclectic taste.
And one of your big heroes, of course, was Lola Beltran.
Oh, she's fantastic. I mean, she was the voice of Mexico. You know, she was absolutely this huge, huge, beautiful voice that could have done anything. She also could have been an opera singer or jazz singer or anything she wanted to be, but she really nailed that Mexican ranchera style better than anyone, and I just idolized her.
I think you did a pretty good job because, you know, hearing your versions of a lot of those songs and then hearing Lola's, I thought, wow, you've done an amazing job.
Especially I can't even touch her, but you know, you don't have to have something to shoot for. But her style, her singing style really influenced my rock and roll style, too, my belt style. You know, I was way more influenced by that than by an American singer, so I just couldn't help but try to copy her.
I found a video of you singing with her. Did you form an enduring relationship with Lola Beltran?
Well, there was a language barrier. My Spanish is so crappy. I can't speak Spanish very well. I told her once I wish I could speak Spanish really well so we could sit down and just gossip. But she was lovely, you know. She comes from a very competitive world where other female artists are highly, viciously competitive with each other. I think she was expecting that from me at first. But when it didn't arrive, she relaxed and became very cordial to me, and I really liked her a lot. You know, I just admire her tremendously as a singer. The first time I stepped up on stage with her, she said, "Oh, sing a song with me," and she started singing it in the Mixtec language, which is an indigenous Mexican language. It's not even from the same root as Spanish. And she said, "Oh, the words are easy. You'll get them." And
Wow.
I was pretty out of my league. I just kind of stood there and giggled.
I love the fact where you talk about influences. In fact, to paraphrase, one of the things in your book you say, when I bend my ear to a singer's performance, I often try to track who influenced them. And then you go on to talk about Amy Winehouse's duet with Tony Bennett, where she channels Dinah Washington and Billie Holiday. And I find that really fascinating because in the years that I've spent away from active rock and roll, I've done that as well. I have a very good friend of mine who was born in Rome who played in a band with me, one of the most articulate musicians. He said to me that the older you get, the further back you mine.
I think that's completely true.
It's terrific because you go back, and as I say, you know, I was a kid of the 60s and I grew up listening to the Beatles and the British invasion down here in Australia because the British influence was very strong because of us being colonial down here. But I felt really guilty going back to talk about the black injustices that I discovered that all of these songs, like You Really Got a Hold on Me, one of your heroes, Smokey Robertson and the Miracles and things like that, you discover the original versions of these songs and you think, my goodness, Black America had such a lot to do with rock and roll.
Everything to do with it. They invented it. And then like everything else that they did that was so good, it was co-opted by white artists. And even Billie Holiday I'm reading a biography of Peggy Lee right now, who's a wonderful singer, but she was incredibly influenced by Billie Holiday, who among us couldn't be because she was so good. She was the seminal style. But there was a lot of resentment against Peggy Lee by Billie Holiday because she copied her and she was white, and so she got the credit for everything and all the money, you know, so it's tough.
That is such a familiar story. I mean, it's incredible when you think something like, I forget the song that maybe Bill Haley copied, but I think it was...
Oh, yeah, all of those songs. Shake, Rattle, and Roll.
Yeah, Shake, Rattle, and Roll. What was this guy's name? I'm trying to think of the original black artist. He had one of those wonderful...
Isn't that terrible? I can't remember either, and I used to know
Big Joe Turner.
You're right, Big Joe Turner. You're absolutely right.
Oh, man, when you hear the original, you think, wow, you know, and it couldn't be more
so much better.
Yeah, a dichotomy of opposites, where you got this guy with a little kiss curl on his forehead, and it was really amazing.
Are you telling me that Pat Boone isn't as good as Little Richard there, Darren?
Yeah, exactly. Come on. I mean, poor Pat Boone. He tried his hardest. He had a sweet voice, but... It just breaks my heart, and then you see it in the movies all the time. You see a guy like Bill Bojangles Robinson, and they'll let him dance with Shirley Temple, but nobody else. Yep. Well, Shirley Temple was a good dancer, but come on, you know. 5-year-old white girl is more important than you are, and you're Bill Bojangles Robinson. It's just not fair.
I would like to ask you, when you said you went to LA and you met Ry Cooder almost straight away, so was there like a musical community there already?
Oh, yeah, there was a musical community there already. I didn't know them very well, but I got to meet them, and they were pretty cordial to me. I mean, I didn't get to become great chums with Ry Cooder or anything like that, but we are actually friends now. They were the front line, and we just stood in back and admired them. You know, we were the fans.
Yeah.
And we learned the best we could from their music. Then I met the Byrds right away. They were playing at the Trip on the Sunset Strip. And then I was amazed at that because I had been playing folk music before that, and here they were playing folk music electrically, and we thought, wow, that was so hip. They had an electric 12-string, and that was just the coolest thing that I'd ever heard. It's a great sound. Well, then Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers came along, built on that sound so well, you know. I mean, that's the thing. Musicians have to influence each other, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers was really influenced by the Byrds, but they used it to make their own thing in a wonderful way.
The Stone Ponies, they recorded their first song in 1965 for Mike Curb, so you would have been still pretty new to LA in 65?
Yeah, I just arrived because I graduated from high school in 1964. Didn't really officially graduate because I didn't turn up often enough, so they didn't give me a diploma.
Oh, right.
But I went to college I went to college for a semester, so I was just out of college.
And so how did the Stone Ponies get together, Linda?
Well, Bob Kimmel was the bass player. We had a family group. I sang in a group with my sister and brother. We had a little folk group called the New Union Ramblers. We sort of copied Peter, Paul, and Mary, except we had two women's voices and a man instead of the other way around. And Bobby Kimmel was our bass player. And then he wanted to move to Los Angeles because there was more music and more jobs. So he moved over there. And then he wrote me a letter and said, I can get us work over here if you want to move over. So I went, oh, cool, I want to go to L.A. So I did.
But you did,
and,
yeah.
there were three of us living in a little place on the beach, he and I and this guy, Malcolm Terrence, that worked for the Los Angeles Times. He was a reporter for the Los Angeles Times. We had $80 a month rent. We split the rent 3 ways. It was good. We cooked at home, and Malcolm could cook, and so we didn't have to eat in restaurants. And you could make $1 stretch pretty far in those days. We could eat a meal for $3.50. There was a soul food restaurant called Olivia's, so you get meat and meat and 3 different vegetables that you could eat for $3. And then we cooked at home. We didn't go out and eat. Malcolm was a really good cook. We ate really well.
You still had money left over from that $30 of yours?
Exactly. I made it last 3 months. I really did.
Did you manage to get any gigs during this time?
Well, yeah, we played in little places, little clubs, like the place called the Insomniac that was down at Hermosa Beach. There was a whole little network of those places. You play, you get $30. It's a big deal. If you're lucky, you got $30.
And how did you get, firstly, Mike Curb of Sidewalk interested?
So we were rehearsing in a laundromat across the street from the Olivia's soul food place, and they heard us over the sound of the washers and the dryers, and they said, we can get you a contract at Capitol Records. I can't remember what it was, but they weren't people we really wanted to work with. They wanted us to go to Las Vegas, and they wanted me to wear an evening gown, and we could tell right away it wasn't going to work. Thing never really happened. They never released those sides until after I was established.
The Stone Ponies, they did establish themselves. They signed to Capitol, and somehow Mike Nesmith, who wrote Different Dumb before the Monkees.
Yeah, he wrote it before the Monkees. I didn't even realize he'd written it. I learned it from a bluegrass group called the Greenbrier Boys. We used to sing with Joan Baez, and that's where I learned it off their record. And I thought it was a really good song. I thought it was a hit, but I wanted to record it bluegrass style, and the record company argued with me and made me re-record it with the orchestra. I didn't want them to really release it, but it was a big hit.
Oh, it's a nice song. That harpsichord, I love that harpsichord.
See, they were right.
Yeah.
They were never right again after that. No. The last time they were right.
I was going to look just before we went on air. I was going to look on the internet to see who played on Different Drum. Would it have been any members?
Don Randy.
Don Randy. It was so there were no
Jimmy
members.
Jimmy Gordon was the drummer.
Oh, Jim Gordon, okay.
Who was the bass player?
Jimmy Bond.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Jim Bond.
Jimmy Bond.
Oh, because I thought it might have been the Wrecking Crew because they just did everything. But no, that's yeah.
They did everything. They worked on a lot of my stuff. I think the guitar player was one of the Wrecking Crew. I can't remember who it was.
That must have just been an amazing time. The melting pot of things that were going on in Los Angeles, it was just incredible. The amount of music that was coming out. I mean, I'm going to sound my, what was that wonderful thing that Brian Wilson said, I was not made for these times. That's another thing as well.
Oh, yeah,
I think.
I just wasn't made for these times. What a brilliant... I mean, people say, they go, I'm not really a Beatles person, I'm a Rolling Stones person. And I was like, I'm really a Rolling Stones person, not a Beatles person. I always go, hell, I'm a Beach Boys person. Forget the Rolling Stones and the Beatles.
Yeah.
I like the Beach Boys. For musicianship and, Brian... And the Beach Boys really was Brian Wilson,
Absolutely.
I mean, for musicianship and harmonies and beautiful, beautiful songwriting, just incredible stuff, better than anybody. He was so good. What a singer. Just loved him. Brian was the genius.
Yeah, exactly.
He was the genius behind the group.
Another person we kind of share that in the sense that were in our lives was that I think it was around about 1990 Little River Band did a tour of Australia. For some reason, once again, someone in the record company said, you guys should have Warren Zevon as your special guest. And we were kind of thinking, what? Warren Zevon singing with Little River Band, and Warren came down, and at the time his girlfriend was Eleanor Mondale, who was the daughter of Walter.
Oh, really?
Mondale. Yeah. So,
that's right. Oh my God, that's right.
So it was really bizarre. So I really have had very strong connections to America all my life and embraced it very fondly. But, Warren came down and he was such a strange guy because Little River Band were a pretty straight-laced kind of band. We weren't into doing heavy anything really, but just making great music. And Warren came down and it was just bizarre. But, once again, having been a fan of yours for so long, to actually play Poor, Poor, Pitiful Me and to play those songs behind Warren was a real thrill for me because we were actually Warren's band. He didn't come down with his own group. We would come out, do a little bit of a show, and they would say, ladies and gentlemen, now here's Warren Zevon. And he was a funny son of a bitch. He was a very funny guy.
He was so smart.
And I
loved him. He wrote that song Accidentally Like a Martyr. It was so good. It's a song I always wanted to record, and I missed it. I never did get to do it. It'll haunt me to the end.
I've seen you say on countless interviews now that you really can't sing at all. Do you still have a sing in the shower voice like us mere mortals?
No, I don't. I wish I did. I'd love to sing in the shower. But I can't sing at all. I can talk still, but it's an effort even to talk.
Oh, really? Well...
I don't have my old speaking voice. Is different.
You sound very similar to me.
I'm glad you think so.
Yeah,
you're a true professional. You just sound like Linda Ronstadt.
This is Linda Ronstadt, isn't it?
I've lost a whole part of my speaking voice, but, that's just the way it is. I just have to try to do the best I can with it. Mm-hmm. But I can't sing at all. I can't make the notes at all.
What's the prognosis for Parkinson? Is there something that can hold it?
Well, the end stage of Parkinson's disease is death, unfortunately.
Is there something that can hold it back?
Prognosis.
Is there something that can hold it back?
Well, there's nothing. It's progressive. They haven't come up with anything yet that stops the progress of it.
They're doing some stem cell research, aren't they? Stem cell
There's
seems to be the new frontier.
quite a lot of stem cell research. Again, the Republicans won't allow any of that research in the United States because of abortion.
Oh,
it's ridiculous.
My goodness.
A cell is not a baby. It's not a person. It's not a life. It's just a potential for life. And when it can be a potential for someone to continue to live who's already living, it seems to me pretty obvious that we should have stem cell research.
Exactly.
But tell that to a Republican,
Michael J. Fox has been suffering for a long time.
Well, he can do his acting, as he says, as long as he's playing the part of someone who has Parkinson's disease. And it is progressive, and it moves differently in everybody. So some people it goes very slowly, some people it goes faster. I think I've had it since 2000. Not easy to diagnose, and nobody caught it. I mean, I don't have any reason to go out in the public now because I don't sing. The only reason I do it is to publicize the book, or if I have something to sell, I go out there. It's not anything I'm trying to hide. It was hidden from me for a long time. I didn't even know I had it. I had it for a long time and didn't even know I had it. But I don't feel like that's my job in life, is to go out and tell people what it's like to have Parkinson's disease. There's plenty of people doing that, I mean, I'm not going to do it, but I just don't think that that's my new job particularly.
Going back to doing publicity on things, we should also note that you have your duets album out as well, which I think John Boylan helped put together for you. Was that correct?
Well, yeah, he did. He was helpful. I had to sing the duets, though. Yeah. He couldn't sing them for me.
Exactly, yes. Sorry.
Fortunately, they had already been done.
It's a pretty different life for you now, Linda.
It's not the life of retirement I thought I was going to have. I think I thought I was going to be gardening and knitting and traveling for pleasure. None of those things are available to me now. So, it's just a different life, but it's okay. I have good friends, and people have been very supportive and very nice.
Has San Francisco been one of the places that has remained familiar to you in the sense that it probably hasn't changed for the worst?
Well,
is it because I always liked it.
That. I mean, San Francisco has just become so impossibly expensive because of the .com thing. I mean, the way that politics are structured in the United States right now, it makes it easier for rich people to get enormously wealthy, to become billionaires, and the rest of the middle class is just getting squeezed bloodless. So the thing that's changed so profoundly about San Francisco is that middle-class people can't afford to live here. That means teachers, policemen, firemen, even doctors are having a hard time affording the city. And unless you're a billionaire, it's just impossible to live here unless you want to live in a shack. So, and families are moving out, so it's not as much a family. There's not as many children. And the .com millionaires have increased to such a degree that they're crowding the city and there's nowhere to park. You know?
Wow.
And the city's broke, so it's getting most of its money from parking tickets, so it's making sure that there are no legal places to park. So it's harder to live here than it used to be. Everything is changing. Everything is changing. The weather's changing. But it's still a really nice city, and I think that the only safety is in small groups of like-minded people, and I can find enough like-minded people here. There's still enough liberals living in the city. They're hanging on,
I know another thing saying about, things you do in retirement is you have a really lovely thing you also write in your book where you specifically say that going back now to issues that Nick draws you back to about your early days in Los Angeles was that when you were living with J.D. Souther, and you say that, you were avid listeners back in the days when you used to actually sit in front of a stereogram rather than, put iPod on or something. And you said that invariably you would always end the night with Sinatra's album Sings for Only the Lonely, which is a really amazing... It's my son is 29 and he absolutely adores that record. Obviously...
It's a great record.
And I just think that the amazing thing, he often says to me, Dad, do you miss being on the road with your musician friends and everything? Because I really have, in a sense, without not knowing you fully, but I have really kind of dropped out as well. I've become a bit of a recluse. And I say to my son, what I really miss is sitting around with my musical friends listening to music on a stereo, because you can actually...
Exactly, so that's exactly what I miss with a hi-fi sound. In fact, I'm meeting J.D. Souther for breakfast in the morning.
Oh, wonderful.
He just made a new album. He's going to take it over to my house. We're going to sit and listen to it.
Oh, wow.
But I don't have anything to play it on except one of those stupid Bose combination, clock radio CD players with those weird speakers that just make everything sound so weird on them. I just can't stand them. So I told JD I didn't have any stereo set up, and he was just astounded. But I moved into this house, and the living room doesn't have very good sound, so I haven't set up speakers.
No, you need to get yourself a good set of old JBL studio monitors and a nice amp.
That's exactly what I used to have.
Yes.
They were so great. Now I got Channel X. I like those pretty much, but I haven't set it up yet. There's not a place to do it. I've got to figure it out.
And isn't it good also that kids have gone back to vinyl? My son also prefers to listen to the vinyl albums than the CDs. And there is a difference, of course.
Oh, man, I gave away my vinyl copy of Only the Lonely, and I listened to a CD the other day, and It had been mastered really oddly, and it sucked. So I would kill for a good vinyl pressing of that, and then I have to get a turntable. Still got one in storage. I got to get all that stuff out of storage.
Well, that sounds like the kind of job that you should get Mr. Boylan onto for you. I'm sure he knows someone at Capitol Records.
There you go.
Because you want to get an original pressing, of course.
Or I could probably get it back from the guy that I gave it to, because he's an archivist. I have to call him up.
So, as I said, I am unashamedly, as you can probably hear, there were so many things that I read in your book that I really connected with as a sort of fellow musician. And you really impressed me as a budding musicologist. Your knowledge of music is absolutely fabulous.
Well, I'm sure yours is, too, having spent your whole life doing it. You just pick up things along the way, don't you think?
It's not, Linda, because he doesn't know anything about Bulgarian folk music at all, whereas you...
You're a little farther away from Bulgaria than I am.
No, but it is good. I just think the wonderful thing, as I said before, that phrase about the older we get, the further back we mine, was that discovering, Lola Beltran, and of course, who's the other singer that I wrote down here that you mentioned? Pastora Pavon.
Well, La Nina de las Penas, the gypsy singer, the Spanish gypsy singer. I've been listening almost exclusively to her. It was the first thing I ever heard on a record when I was 2 years old, was this singer Pastora Pavon from Spain. She was a Roma, gypsy singer, just fantastic flamenco singer, meant to be the best ever. And I still listen to her stuff all the time.
I listened to a few YouTubes of her, and it was very scratchy, so I thought there probably isn't high-quality versions of her music, because that's the way it was.
Well, her stuff was all recorded in 78. That's what we had. But It sounds good to me. So you listen to Pastora Pavon?
I have indeed, yes.
Now, there's a new girl named Estrella Morente, also on YouTube, meant to be, directly passed down from that style. Absolutely gorgeous girl. She's so beautiful. She's just a wonderful singer. You should check her out. She can sing pop music too, but she really knows that pure traditional flamenco style. It's really good though. You should turn your son, if he likes jazz, you should turn him on to the Lake Street Dive. Have you heard those guys?
No.
Oh, they're really good. Oh, you can't miss them. The band is trumpet, acoustic bass, girl bass players all over that thing like a swarm of ants. Let's see, what did I say? Trumpet, acoustic bass, and drums. That's the band. And they got a girl singer that looks like Scarlett Johansson, sings like Amy Winehouse. She's amazing. Just a great, and they all sing harmony, and it's just an amazing band, Lake Street Dive. They did a cover of I Want You Back, that Michael Jackson song, but they were all jazz students at the Boston Conservatory of Music, or the New England Conservatory of Music, and they're all jazz players, but they do these pop covers, and she's a really soulful singer, just amazing technique. They just sort of all musicians are playing that for each other now. They go, listen to this, and you get your iPhone out and show this beautiful girl with strawberry blonde hair and red lipstick. Man, she can wear the red lipstick and she can wear the dress. Okay. You got to check her out. Rachel Price, her name is.
There is one question I must ask you, is that you sing on the track Under African Skies with Paul Simon.
Oh, yeah.
How did that, because in the book you don't say how it came about. How did that come about that you work with Paul, and how did it come about? Did he write the verse for you? Did that inspire you to sing the song?
He did. He called me up. He said, I'm having a hard time. I got writer's block. He said, I'm having a hard time. He said, give me an image from where you grew up, something that you was around. I went, oh, my gosh, the San Javier Mission, which is a beautiful mission, is built in the late 1600s, early 1700s. I told him about that, and so then he wrote that verse.
Oh, what a beautiful verse.
He's working on some amazing stuff. I don't know if you heard So Beautiful or So What, but I think it's just a little masterpiece.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it.
And brilliant piece of work. He sent me a bunch of new stuff he's been working on, and it's just extraordinary. I mean, that guy's writing still at the top of his talent. He and Leonard Cohen are still writing stuff of the same quality that they wrote when they were young men, just even better. Some
of the greatest songwriters, pop songwriters of our time, they serve up a lot of drivel now, and I often think that songwriters have a use-by date, but you're absolutely right with Paul Simon. And to a lesser degree, Joni Mitchell still knocks out quite a good lyric. I'd never really grown up listening to Leonard Cohen.
It's not too late. You can listen to him now. Man, is he good.
Well, I listen to him because it's coming out.
Hallelujah is as good as anything you're ever going to find written, you know. I mean, he ran long and he ran hard and he came over the finish line. I mean, it's more natural to be like those other songwriters that have a peak, and that's normal, you know. Leonard Cohen is just not normal. He's an anomaly.
Linda, I've just got to say that Derek's been mentioning his son, but unfortunately my son, he only likes two kinds of music. That's rap and hip-hop. So, well,
that's good music.
Yeah, but
everybody finds their own expression.
We share another love of a band that we worked with a lot in the early 70s when we first started out. And I also should say that, once again, reading things from you about inspirations, was that the early years that we were touring America were the years I loved the most, because we opened for everybody from Cheech and Chong to Little Feat. And I remember that often my lead singer and I used to stand at the side of the stage and watch bands like Little Feat, and we would say, why are we here in America? This band is absolutely the greatest thing we've ever seen in our lives. When people say to me...
They're my favorite rock and roll band still.
When people say there are other acts in the world who run with the mantle of world's best rock and roll band, and I often think, wow, have you guys heard Little Feat? Unfortunately, the world
They're the best.
Well, unfortunately, I should dob Nick in. Nick doesn't share our passion, yours and my passion, with Little Feat for some reason. He doesn't get it, so I might have to send him over
Dixie
the whole catalog.
Chicken? Come on.
But,
get a copy of Dixie Chicken. Listen to that.
Well, just before I left home this morning, I listened to... There was no vision, but I listened to you on a radio station, maybe in Atlanta or something, where you were singing with Lowell, and you did Willing. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but we sang really bad. I mean, it was early in the morning, and we were kind of hungover. And,
yeah, it was fun, but it was. But I got the exuberance. I knew where you were coming from.
He's a great singer. I mean, I spent a lot of time with him. He's just an amazing... He's one of my favorite singers I ever heard, and he's a great slide guitar player.
Oh, an amazing slide guitar.
He was one of the slide guitar players.
That's the musicologist in you. I love the way you explained that he used a socket wrench instead of a glass jar. He used a socket wrench from Sears Roebuck.
Yes. 11/16 socket wrench or something like that. I can't remember what the number was.
That's what's really cool about your book, is that, you know, you throw things in there like that, you know...
Well, I went to Sears with him to buy one day.
So you knew all about it.
Go to Sears. He showed it to me, told me exactly what the number was, and I remembered it.
Linda, we better let you rest your vocal cords.
Okay, terrific. Well, it was awfully nice of you guys to call.
Thank you very much for taking time to talk with us there, Linda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Linda. It was an absolute pleasure for us, and I hope your fans enjoy listening to you.
Good night.